Hi, welcome to That Reminds Me Of, a podcast about film and the films that remind us of that film. You're here with Baron and the Doc.
And the Maestro.
Do we need another drink?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Well, Baron, here we are again with our friend Sean Mackaay.
Sean, in case you,
hey guys.
In case you all haven't listened to the full episode on Avatar 2, Sean and the two of us, and the Maestro, we've all just been catching up, having a really in-depth talk about Avatar 2, so go check that out. This episode, this little mini episode that we're doing now is about
Oh,
the lunch eater.
That actually looked really smooth, really slick.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yes, and in case you're listening.
That's so awesome that you bought an actual hard copy.
Yeah, I'm jealous actually.
I was just thrilled when I went on there and saw I had the option to. Let's just start with this. This is Lunch Eater.
Sorta, yeah.
Yeah, sorta. Exactly.
Lunch Eater Raw.
Yeah.
Lunch Eater sorta. That's what impresses me that I was able to get a hard copy of it. So this is in its raw form, straight out of this man's head onto the page. And then I think he made a point of not editing or doing anything to it at all, and just adding a little bit of commentary in between a few of the chapters. So it's not the sort of thing that you generally, as a reader, get the privilege of having a look at. So it's just the whole concept. I loved the fact that you released it online in serialized form back in the sort of turn of the screw, Charles Dickens sort of mode. I know that he didn't write Turn of the Screw. I just saying they, both him and Henry James did similar things.
Sure.
And was this how Twilight was released as well? Did that start off as fan fiction that was released bit by bit? Have I just got that little factoid?
Are you thinking of 50 Shades?
50 Shades. That's the
was
one.
Twilight fanfic.
There you go. Love it.
50 Shades. My goodness.
However, this is nothing like...
Is that your first that reminds me of for Lunch Eater?
50 Shades of Grey.
Well, there are a couple of blue sort of scenes, you know.
Yes,
not
there
blue
are.
like Avatar. I mean, blue like, you know.
Yes, indeed. Can I just say...
There are. I don't know whether they'll survive to the next draft, if I'm honest, though.
2 notes.
2 notes.
Yeah, I've got a couple notes right here. Our good friend Doc has actually written...
Oh, God, it's marked up.
He's marked it up.
That's
he's
awesome, man.
He's underlined. He's ticked things like, yes, nice. Here he wrote try harder. No, he didn't. It's nice. He's written in it.
Wrong, see me after class.
Yeah.
No, that's how I read. I like reading like that. And there are a lot of underlines and ticks and smiley faces. So that's a good thing.
I love it. And does the smiley face, is that you smiled while you were reading it, or you're just saying, yep, nice?
No, I definitely smiled. I probably laughed.
Okay, great.
Smiley face is usually a laugh.
That's great.
You know, I find that's a real lost art in this day and age, that whole like going through an actual hard copy of a book and like marking it up and jotting down notes in the margins and stuff.
Marginalia, they call it.
Marginalia,
So
indeed.
there is an art. Yeah. There's an art to it, which I'm not.
Also sounds a bit dirty, if you want to be
honest. It is a bit dirty. You can write anything you can write things in the margins that you would never write elsewhere.
You just add alia onto the end of anything. It doesn't sound right. The other thing I wanted to just say about this is how ballsy and great that you have done this and released it raw.
Thanks.
I think that's super impressive, because a lot of people wouldn't have the balls to do that. And to put themselves out there in that way, unedited, unproof red, sort of just like, here it is, folks, and I'm doing this on purpose. I'm taking you on the journey, fully aware that there will be more work to come and this isn't finished. And a lot of people don't want to show anything that isn't fully finished, you know?
Yeah, look, I think the first hurdle in terms of that was the newsletter itself. Like getting through that and pushing it out in chapters week by week or day by day as it was towards the end. Yeah, that was the real kind of breaking the seal in terms of doing it in front of people. At that point, it just made sense to extend that and, you know, put it all together in a book, put in some commentary, you know, and so if the newsletter was kind of like, hey, play along at home with me while I release this book, this is more a something that people can pick up and go, okay, so this is what a first draft looks like, and this is the sort of stuff that maybe you think about as you revise a draft,
Yeah. I really appreciated the commentary as I was going through it.
That's the best part of it.
Yeah, particularly when you're saying things like, here's what I was trying to do, or here's what I'm trying to do here, and I'm not sure if I've achieved it or not.
Yep.
And there's, because I know that feeling when I'm working on things that I'm writing on, where I'm going, I know what I'm trying to do here. I have no idea if it's working. I don't know if it's going to stay that way. I don't know if anyone else is going to respond to it. And just to sort of read your inner dialogue that, is clearly there while you're going through this.
I think we've all got it. And I think we just don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
Like, I know that as writers, we sit there and go, writing is rewriting and kill your darlings and stuff like that. But it's all just kind of platitudes.
Yeah.
Compared to the actual work of getting in there and going, all right, what works? What doesn't? What do I need to fix here? What do I need to change so that this bit down the road plays? And even if nobody read that, going through and marking up all that commentary and actually thinking about the book in sort of that framework actually helped me to be able to kind of continue on in terms of drafts.
That's interesting. That's something I would never think to do, but that's cool.
Should we? I'm inclined not to spoil it, even though you spoil it in your commentary, which is a spoiler of its own.
Yeah.
I'm inclined not to spoil it here, but we should at least give a sense of what it's about.
Sure.
I don't know how much is spoiling and how much isn't, but it's set in a public service kind of situation where anyone who has any knowledge of either the public service or, for that matter, an office environment in general will immediately, if nothing else, get some laughs out of how that's portrayed, because we all know the characters in there. And then I think beyond that, there is a through line to the story that is a little bit darker.
That's fine.
That's all I would like to say. I wouldn't want to stuff it up for people unless either of you want to spoil it.
I'm happy to. I potentially think about the spoiler point much later in the book than you guys might.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's fair to say it's about a guy who is a public servant who is mildly good at his job, and then the apocalypse happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I feel comfortable saying that without actually feeling like I spoil anything, because I feel like the turn on that happens early enough.
I agree.
Yeah.
And also, like, you can't sell a story by saying it's about a bunch of people in a beige public service job without some sort of conflict. And I think, the pandemic or the apocalypse is sort of the thing that turns everything on its head.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And there is a B story, really, isn't there, Baron, that I think you quite like, that relates to the title of the novel.
I love it. And I know this is a point of contention, perhaps, because
I think this is fair game to talk about.
Yeah, well, the book is called Lunch Eater, and there's just these beautiful scenes or chapters where you're suddenly in the mind of a person, unknown to the reader who this person is, that just likes to go through people's lunches in the fridge and steal the delicious looking ones and go back to his desk quietly, eat them, and then dispose of the evidence. And I just think it's beautiful. It's so wonderful. And also there's something about that character that reminds me of the public service, which is maybe where it's come from. But having worked in the public service for about 6 years earlier on in my career, all these characters are so familiar, and the feelings of that you've portrayed beautifully here of what an office space and the day-to-day work is like in that setting is so familiar. And the thought of somebody just spending their time perusing the lunches in the fridges just makes me smile because it's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
But your issue is that in the commentary, I've said that I'm going to take him out.
Well, that bothered me, yeah, because that was one of my favorite parts. I understand the thought because you either go all in or you go all out.
Yeah.
You don't, you know. So
it's interesting. Since you've said that, I've had a number of people say to me, like, no, you need to keep the lunch eating stuff in. If anything, I want more of it. And I'm like, oh, God, I've got to describe more food. Like, God damn it.
At some point, now I want to find it. I texted you a note about stealing lunches, but also just thinking about the color coding of foods. Anyway, there is a section where you just start dropping some knowledge about food and the coloring of food, and you know how things that are chicken flavored are always green, even though you would never want anything that is actually chicken to be green because that's very
exactly.
And the one that made me laugh was that something about licorice flavored things.
Yeah,
how only old people eat those and nobody else really wants them.
Well, so true. How you want your lollies from the $2 shop.
Yeah, and the two, yes. However, I love licorice. It's a bit like Avatar. I love licorice flavored things.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I've got Dutch heritage. I love licorice as well. But like, I felt fairly comfortable slamming on licorice in the book.
Fair. Okay.
And this is Brian anyway. It's a different character.
Yeah, it's true.
Exactly.
Except how much of Brian is Sean? That's the question that we all are asking. Everybody's asking it when they read this. If they know you, they're wondering.
This is the problem. Look, okay. Have you guys read that? Yeah,
I've started reading it, and I also wondered how much of that character was Sean too.
Yeah,
it hasn't arrived yet, Sean.
Sean just held up his
I emailed it to you.
No. But
hard copy.
I've still I bought the hard copy.
No. He just held up Pattern Machine for those people who can't see what's happening right now, which is the Bastards series, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Look,
three or four books in there.
Four plus a failed novel plus a stub of a book in the middle of it. You'll find out.
Yeah, that's a good sell.
Yeah.
4 plus a failed novel and a stub of a book.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, look, this always comes up whenever I write something, like because I always write first person stuff. People are just like, "This is you," and I'm like, "No, it's not." Like in Endless Cycle, James was kind of, I guess, some of my more radical politics dialed up to 11. In Pattern Machine, Steve was some of my darker thoughts dialed up to 11.
Yeah.
And Brian is... I actually, if I'm perfectly honest, I don't really know Brian. Every now and again, he feels like me, but a lot of the time he doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I can
Maybe he's more competent than me. Maybe he's more well-regarded. I'm not sure, but he ain't me.
I was struck with how competent he was when he got into Charlie's chair. Yeah, straight away he was making the right decisions. He was dealing with conflict in the appropriate way. He was good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's interesting that, isn't it? Because you take when a character has a strong voice and it's coming from an author, you wonder where the strong voice comes from, and It's similar in a way. What you're saying is, you know, when I make a horror film, someone will come up to me sometimes and say, "You're such a nice guy. Why do you why are you making these films? What? I don't get it. Where's the
what's
darkness?
Happening inside your head?
Yeah, where's the darkness? Are you thinking about eating people right now? Is that what's going on beneath the surface?"
A lot of the time, people don't get imagination.
Yes.
Like they simply don't. Like Endless Cycle is a book about like apolitical terrorists.
Yep.
Right? So when that came out, my grandmother, she rang up my dad and went for 45 minutes like, "I'm really worried about Sean. I think he's going to become a terrorist." My dad's just like, "Oh, Mom,
it's a character.
It's fiction.
Fiction.
It's a character. This isn't real." Like, but people can't really necessarily understand where ideas come from if they don't have those sort of creative outlets themselves.
Yes. And the thing is, right, that's difficult to explain is that, you might write a book about being a murderer and think quite deeply about the process of murdering people. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It doesn't mean you want to do it. You've just gone you've gone on the journey. You've just walked down the path a bit in your brain.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's hard for people to understand.
Exactly. What is the logic of the situation that I'm trying to get onto the page?
Yeah. If I were to murder someone, how would I do it? It's sort of... Anyway.
No, it's exactly that.
Yeah. So I think we should talk about some reminds me ofs.
Yes.
Should we do reminds me ofs?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the name of the goddamn show.
It's the name of the show.
I'm going to start with one of my absolute favourite authors of all time, Sean. Apart from you, but you've just this is the first one I've read of yours, so you've just entered the the group. But Nabokov, Pale Fire.
Wow.
Which is one of the greatest things of all time. But essentially, I haven't read it for years and years, but it's a 999 line poem. For starters. Have you read Pale Fire?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Nabokov's just chef's kiss.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then the bulk of it is the commentary. The commentary about the poem that Nabokov or one of his characters has written. So as soon as I was just confronted with art and then commentary about the art, I just went straight to Vlad.
Nice.
So, well done for getting me there because he's one of the titans.
Yeah, thanks.
So, stick with me. Avatar 2.
Okay.
Avatar... No, I'm joking. No, don't. Not at all.
I'm sure we could make some sort of...
some tenuous connection.
Yeah.
No, not at all. So you've actually brought this up in your own blog, but I could not help but think of Severance as I was reading Lunch Eater, and a lot because there's so many parallels in terms of depicting a pretty fucked up workplace that is far from ideal, and the people in it feel like they're trapped in this world far removed from reality. It's its own little self-contained bubble, which I think you do set up beautifully in Lunch Eater, by the way.
Thanks.
And then alongside that is a science fiction kind of event happening. It just feels like the world is being turned completely upside down, and yet they're still in their bubble, right through to the end. And that's beautiful. It's such a nice, dare I say, juxtaposition. Just to sound smart.
Dare to say.
Yeah. I'm genuinely glad that I didn't watch any of Severance until I'd actually finished writing Lunch Eater, because oh boy, would that have infected things.
And like I say that they're, obviously there's similarities there in the setup, but then, they both go off in their completely different directions.
Yeah.
So,
undoubtedly, but it's tapping into a similar sort of space.
Yeah. 100%. And then of course I was only going to do one reminds me of, but you can't talk about the public service without talking about Utopia, I suppose. So, there's a little bit of that in there.
There's a new season coming.
Really?
Mm.
Oh, that'll be fun. That'll be very fun.
Can I ask you, do you have a reminds me of for your own piece of work?
Oh, God, how far up my own ass do I want to go?
All the way.
So I read this novella years ago. I'm going to have to look it up because I can't remember who wrote it, but it was called The Room. And it's like 85 pages, maybe a little more. Really, really just streamlined and razor sharp. And it's by a guy by the name of Jonas Carlson. And it's just this really mundane office environment. And this new guy starts and he thinks he's better than most of the people he's working with. And seems to have some sort of a psychotic break where he starts going into the room, but then towards the end, it kind of turns out that he's just kind of like standing in a corner, essentially staring at the wall for like hours at a time. Yeah, it's a very bizarre little book. I highly recommend it. It's absolutely fantastic. Beyond that, I guess just, I think there's some fairly obvious influences on it, like James Ellroy, in terms of kind of the style. Obviously, weird fiction like Lovecraft, which I'm not giving away too much by saying that, but you guys know what I'm talking 100%. About.
Yep.
Also, that meta-narrator chapter?
Yes.
I feel like that came about because of this Korean film called Burning that I watched, which I highly recommend. Like, go out of your way to watch it. It was on SBS On Demand for a while. It probably still is. That there's a few scenes in that I think I was kind of channeling when I was like bashing that out one afternoon.
Beautiful.
The meta narrator.
I liked that. Yeah. That was a great little step away from the story.
It was stylistically quite different, wasn't it? I recall that you'd gone from the Brian-esque short, sharp paras to all of a sudden this, these long paragraphs.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I've got another one.
Oh,
awesome.
Please.
This is a late one. This person was influenced by Nabokov as well and is one of my favorites. Martin Amis, London Fields.
Oh, very nice.
So
very nice.
London Fields also has elements in common. Firstly, the style, you're not exactly the same as Martin Amis, but the ability to just have a punchy, humorous line and is there, and to have humor side by side with kind of apocalyptic vibes is similar. And this book starts with knowing that a murder has been committed, so they give it away at the start, and so you know the ending, and you're reaching towards the ending, which is a bit similar to yours. There's also this undercurrent, there's also an author who is living life, and then in between the chapters narrating on what he's written and how it's coming about, which again is similar to specifically your raw version. And the final thing is there's this undercurrent of environmental sort of apocalypse, but it's a much slower burn apocalypse. It's called The Crisis. So you've got The Shriek, which I love, and it's so immediate and crazy. But this is The Crisis, and it's a long, drawn-out kind of slow decay. But again, thematically, stylistically, was reminiscent of, which is a good thing because that's a great book.
I mean, that's rarefied air to be compared to that.
So I think that's all I got.
Yeah. You mentioned just the last thing there. You in your notes at some point you mentioned Murakami, and then you mentioned not the one that you're thinking about, but the other one, if I recall.
Ryu.
Yeah, Ryu. There you go. But actually, while I was reading, for some reason, I had IQ 84 banging around in my head. And I think it was because of the sort of mundane everyday life the main character in that book is living while crazy things are going on and unexplained weirdnesses are happening all around him. And also just the little forays into just seemingly unrelated stuff that would happen every now and again in that book, where you just you walk down a little road, like, stealing lunches from a fridge. So yeah, I had that banging around in my head as well.
Yeah, cool.
Speaking of stealing lunches from a fridge, can we just finish on, the lunch eater part of this and just get an agreement between us all, this shared authoring experience that we're going through, of whether the lunch eater component should be removed or dialed down or dialed up?
No, dialed up.
Dialed
100%.
Up? Yeah, I think I agree. I think they
not that our votes mean anything in this situation.
No.
But
I think the more people are saying it to me, the more I'm convinced. I think, when I was thinking about, okay, it's time to revise, I was like, well, that's easy. I can just like wholesale pull them out.
Yep.
But they do break things up really nicely.
Mm.
It's this other little side thing that's happening. I mean, it becomes I suspect it's still a decent book, but it becomes quite dour and serious without those little inserts. So yes,
I agree.
Well done, you've convinced me.
Great.
Yeah.
Can't wait to read them. Cannot wait to read them. So will it just so when will Lunch Eater Not Raw happen? Lunch Eater, finished Lunch Eater, do you think?
Well, my hope is, because I feel like most of the other things I've cracked, I don't know, maybe a month or two. But to be honest, it depends what the public service is doing to me at the time.
Sure.
Like I could be able to smash it out in 3 days, really, if I tried, or it will take me 3 months.
Yeah.
Depending on whether or not there's another shriek.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, I love that you've taken us on the journey. I love that you're releasing it in parts and then in this raw version with commentary and then soon to be a complete final version. It's very cool. Well done. Like, it's a big effort.
You.
And I think it's cool that you're doing it.
Thank you very much. And look, thanks again for having me on, guys. It's
a pleasure.
Always a blast.
Yes, thanks for coming
Always an absolute blast. Anytime you guys want me back, just let me know.
Awesome. That's great.
When's Avatar 3? Is that
2024?
That's down the track. Yep.
That was great. And thanks for demystifying everything that was wrong with Avatar 2 as well. And for those of you watching or listening, please, to hear more from Sean and us and the Maestro, go and download the episode. Download or watch. I don't know what the terminology is. Just watch.
Do either or.
And subscribe.
Absolutely. All right. See you, folks.
Awesome.
See you, Sean.
Thanks, guys.
Sean.
Bye.